I'm going to try to take something that is somewhat complicated and really make it simple. So simple that a real estate agent could explain it to a first-time home buyer, or maybe a lender on here that hasn't been doing lending for a long time can use this to really articulate the crazy and complicated idea of an interest rate buy-down or buy-down point. This is complicated and sometimes confusing for our borrowers. So this is your Wednesday Jumpstart here on Recharging with Champions. I'm your host, Charlotte Harrell, and I'm going to try to tackle this. Now, before I get started, I want you to know that I have created a graphic already that you can use, and I've given a summary. So I want you to hear me, and I want you to listen to this whole podcast and this whole video so that if somebody asks you, you can be more knowledgeable. But please know you don't have to worry about summarizing. Just go to the goodies, register for the goodies. They're completely free, and take the information and use it on your own social media. So let's jump in. What is an interest rate buy down? An interest rate buy down technically is just reducing your interest rate by paying upfront interest at a reduced rate. What does that mean? So if my interest rate was 6.5% and I wanted to get the interest rate to 6%, I could pay upfront at a reduced rate interest that's going to reduce my interest rate over time. So let's put that in numbers, because I sometimes think that just seeing the numbers and hearing the numbers makes this more easy to understand, right? So let's just say a $100,000 loan. I know that's wishful thinking, but let's just use those numbers for right now. So I'm going to cheat and look down so that I can make sure I get these numbers right. If we were doing a $100,000 loan and the interest rate without any buy down points was 6.5%, over the 30-year period, that total cost would be $127,544.49. That is the interest that you would pay if you never made an early payment and you kept your mortgage for 30 years at 6.5%. Now, let's take that exact same mortgage and let's say we did it at 6%. The total interest paid at 6% would be $115,838.19. So a pretty big reduction from 6.5 to 6 over the full 30 years. So the way that interest rate buy down works is you wouldn't just take the $127,544.49 and subtract $115,838.19 to come up with that difference in interest and pay that up front. That wouldn't be discounted. So the lender, depending on the day, and here's the trick with buy downs, is it's not a consistent thing. It depends on the market and what different coupons, different interest rates are selling for. So an interest rate at 5 might be selling for better than an interest rate at 5.25. And so there's little differences. But the bottom line is every day that rate sheet has a cost for getting a discounted cost of interest for getting that rate down to 6%. So for example, today it would have probably cost about 1% of the loan. So about $1,000 to get that interest rate from 6.5 to 6%. Now, $1,000 is a lot cheaper than the difference in those interest rates over the 30 years. But here's the thing. Most people don't keep the mortgage for 30 years. I think the national average is like 5 to 7 years, and it might even be lower than that right now. I feel like we're a very transient world. But with that being said, let's look at those numbers on a 5-year plan and look at what the difference is. Actually, let's take it back. Let's do a 3-year plan. So 36 months, because I want to figure for the typical average buyer staying in the home for 36, maybe even 60 months. But let's see where our beautiful savings is at 36 months. Again, we're talking about $100,000. If somebody is going to borrow $100,000 at 6.5, in 36 months, they will have paid in, if they pay nothing extra, just baseline payments, they will have paid in $18,808 roughly. So that is how much interest that they would pay in 36 months at 6.5. Now, again, I'm going to pay $1,000 at closing, upfront, non-refundable money to get that rate to 6%. Now, at 6%, at that 36-month mark, my total out-of-pocket for interest, if I make no extra payments, is $17,334. So you see, I've recouped that $1,000 that I paid up front at a discounted rate. And now every month after, I'm saving more money because my interest rate is 0.5% lower. So when would somebody buy the rate down? One, when they can get it bought down to a rate that they're comfortable with and don't feel like they're going to refinance super fast. Two, they're going to be living in the house or plan to be living in the house long enough to start seeing the benefits of doing that buy down. Because if I paid $1,000 and I don't keep the loan long enough to recoup that savings at that lower interest rate, I've wasted my money. So you want to know when your break even point is for that buy down. But if you're getting into a rate that makes you more comfortable with the monthly payment, the rate is something that you probably wouldn't have to refinance immediately. You could maybe stay in the house for a little bit of time before you refinanced, or just stayed in the house until you go to sell it in 3, 5, 7, whatever that looks like. Then it might make sense for you to do an interest rate buy down. So this is when you want to talk to your lender to find out how much the interest rate buy down costs. Because remember, it changes. The cost for 6 to 6.5 or 6.5 to 6 today might be more expensive than it is tomorrow, or vice versa. That is ever changing, just like the stock markets. So talk to your lender, find out what the buy down cost is, find out what your break even point is, and see what makes sense for your scenario. And just FYI, sometimes they should talk to their CPA or their tax preparer, because that upfront interest that they pay at closing, they sometimes can take that as a deduction on their taxes the year that they close. For some of my self-employed borrowers, this comes in very handy if they were needing a little bit of an extra deduction. But remember, we are not tax professionals, so make sure that you tell them to go talk to their tax professional to see if that makes sense. But that is another reason that some people do choose to do a buy down, because it makes sense for them in the tax arena. So I hope that was helpful and gives you just a little insight as to what a buy down is, so that if your buyer, your borrower comes to you and asks a question or talks to you about buy downs, you can go in with some knowledge. But remember, talk to your trusted lender to find out, let them talk to the trusted lender even better to find out which buy down makes sense for them, if it does at all. A good mortgage advisor will absolutely help with that.